Plugin of the week comes from Softube. It's the TubeTech Bluetone BT2A. This is a plugin that's a combination of the SMC2B and the TubeTech equalizers, all part of the MK2 version of as emulated by Softube. So what they've done here is they've mixed in all of these settings, hidden all under the hood, using those pieces of gear as the primary, as the only structure for all of the settings here. You pick the setting that most closely matches what you put this on. You move an amount control to determine how much of it that you want. There's some equalization controls, wet, dry controls, etc. And you blend it in and see what you get. So what you're doing is you're getting the classic TubeTech sound, which was gear that was created to replace Pultecs and also to give an alternative with more options to the LA2A, the CL1B, all of that sort of stuff. And so all of that together, right, with those settings is what this is basically made up of. So you have 8 options: vocal clarity, vocal focus. We'll kind of go through them one at a time. Mix bus wide, right? So remember, if you watch the SM2B, which I also did a review of, it works in mid-side mode, so there's a little bit of that going on there. Drum bus, bass instrument, keys, guitars, stereo guitars. So once you select your initial source here, it determines what the EQ settings will be, right? So basically you have a low band EQ and a high band EQ, and based on which one you select, the EQ will change its frequency, and there's no documentation on it, so I'm not sure if it changes between bell curves and shelves or whatever, but it will give you different settings, so you have to kind of, dig into it and see what you get. It actually, although it goes, in the documentation, it says it goes plus minus 6 dB, even though it shows plus minus 10, so I'm not sure if that's a misprint or which one you get. Either way, do it by ear. And you have a wet-dry control, as would be expected, and an output gain control, which is after everything. The amount control here will determine how much of the processing is meant to be put in. By default, it comes at a setting of 50, so if you switch to any of these, it's optimized for a 50 setting, but the gain structure may be that it comes in a little bit low and it's not doing what you want. You drive it up a little bit more, maybe you drive it up heavy and mix the wet-dry to do a balance in. There's lots of ways that you can go with it. Let's start with doing some audio examples, because there's not much more to it than that. It's pretty straightforward by design. And let's focus on some basic sound. Let's start with drums and bass. Maybe we'll start with drums here. That's like a good start because there's a couple of options with the drums. And so or one option with the drums. So let's go to the drum bus setting here. Right, so I can give it kind of a more aggressive thing here just to kind of really tighten and focus up the drum sound. That's just one quick way to use it. Let's see, it may not work in the context of the way I've constructed the rest of the mix, but let's give it a go, see what happens. On this end, we have the bass, so let's take a look at that. Right, so this looks like it adds like a bit more mid-range focus, right, to get that the attack and note out. Let's hear that with the drums. There's obviously a bit more present there, so just trying to match the level a little bit better. It's still a little bit louder. Let's focus on the guitar parts. Let's see what we got here. Now there's two settings here. There's a keys guitar setting and then a stereo guitars wide. This is really designed more for when you have a guitar that's doubled. But I like this. Let's just compare the two of them real quick and just see what we got. Probably worth digging in and doing two separate ones for each of the guitars, but I just have it here on some stem returns. So let's just kind of roll with that. I like a bit of the edge and presence that this adds to that. There's some keyboard sounds here. Set a bit more in the back. So what you get with that, with the Pultex is this very clean, like this really pristine sounding clarity on the top end and a rich low end. So you can hear the effect of that, which is more mid-rangey without it, but just sort of just stretching the sound, what I would say like vertically. And that would be something that you would typically expect out of a Pultec, just that clarity of the passive EQ, and then also the similar type of clarity out of an optical compressor, which is what this is doing. Let's do the vocal. There are two options for the vocal. Let's solo it up here for a second and go to the verse.
So what's the deal with your actions? I can't buy what you're selling me. Sick of all your contradictions. Is this happening? Trying to find my own reality, 'cause my ideas are free. And the way that you've been acting seems like a one-way street.
Right, so if you want the more airy kind of vocal, the vocal clarity seems to lean in that direction, whereas the vocal focus tends to bring in a bit more mid-range presence, which I prefer. So let's roll with that a bit.
So what's the deal with your actions? I can't buy what you're selling me. Sick of all your contradictions. Is this happening? Trying to find my own reality, 'cause my ideas are free. And the way that you've been acting seems like a one-way street. Don't you point your energy with your lack of sympathy. Tell me how can you walk free? Your guilty ways washed up on me. Tell me how can you walk free? Your guilty ways washed up on me.
Right. So just loads of air and rich low end. And, objectively speaking, it may not be like the perfect sound for like a reggae mix. It may make this particular thing sound a bit too hi-fi in the right context, which is probably most music. I think would be really amazing. Like you can just kind of get the vibe, even if it's on just a particular instrument or a particular group. Let's just throw it on the mix bus here. I want to go over the mix bus and mix bus wide settings. And let's see what we have here now that we kind of pulled this together. Let's go back to the groove section.
What's the deal with your actions? I can't buy what you're selling me. Sick of all your contradictions. Is this happening? Trying to find my own reality, 'cause my ideas are free. And the way that you've been acting seems like a one-way street. Don't you point your energy with your lack of sympathy. Tell me how can you walk free? Your guilty ways washed up on me. Tell me how can you walk free? Your guilty ways washed up on me.
I think maybe I went a little far there with the parallel compression on the drums there, particularly when it gets to the chorus section with the cymbals. But you get the idea here. And obviously this is like a mid-side kind of processing with the compression that adds like a lot more space to the sides and also a bit of depth, sort of sinks the center a little bit in, which is sometimes cool if you want the vocal to be a little bit more embedded in the track. A lot of cool options here for just a simple interface that you can throw on your mix, just even as an enhancement to what you've already done. But again, just so the simplicity of things that some people are confused about what to do with something like the SMC2B, where you have the multi-band compression and understanding, well, where do you place the compression, how much, different ratios, how do I go do this or deal with this band to band, and you can get a bit more, you can get that information more from my review of the SMC2B, which I think is a brilliant unit. But if that sort of thing makes you feel a little off-put, like you're a bit afraid of it, or more likely screwing something up, this is a great way to go, because it kind of just gives you some under the hood settings that essentially work for these different elements, divided up into different categories, select the one that's close, or experiment, right? You could just as easily put the mix bus wide settings on the drums and get that widened effect on just the drums, or just on a particular instrument group like the horns or something in this case, to create that sort of effect. And reap the benefit of it. A really cool one. I like this, and that's why it's plugin of the week. So there you have it, from Softube. Quick review: the TubeTech Bluetone BT2A, a combo of under the hood SMC 2B from TubeTech and the TubeTech EQs, all emulated by Softube. Definitely worth checking out.